Good morning, friends. It's pretty early in the morning, so early that it's a good thing I'm behind the camera and not in front of it. But for today's demonstration, we are going to be doing some dried beans. Now, I do have some tips on how to make the dried beans cook better and faster. So the first thing I would do is I always soak my beans not just overnight, but even longer than that. So there's several different ways you can soak your beans. You can do a speed soak, you can do an overnight soak, or you can do an extended soak, which is what I call it. I don't know what the official word for it is. But basically, speed soak, you soak them for like an hour, but you bring the pot up to a simmer, turn it off, let it soak for an hour, drain the water, then start it again, and then cook them. However, I think the texture of the beans don't turn out as well that way. The second way would be overnight. That's when you just start it right before bed, and then you let them soak for like, 8 or 9 hours, and then at the end of that time you get them started. And while that works pretty well for most beans, and when it cooks in the crock pot and whatnot, that usually works, I have run into times when even cooking all day, I have not been able to cook my beans in time for dinner that night. So when I have hard beans to cook, especially ones that are big, like runner beans, or like these garbanzo beans, or some people call them chickpeas, these can take a little longer to cook, and so I do an extended soak. I started these sometime in the afternoon yesterday, and I let them soak for a good, I want to say 15 hours, so a lot longer than a typical overnight soak, maybe even close to double that. So now, after that, I rinse them, and I drain the water really well. So this is really important because the water that we soak them in absorbs a bunch of the sugars from the beans, and so not only does this make it cook better, but it also makes it to where you have less digestive upsets from the beans. And we and our family eat a lot of beans, so yes, we definitely need to make sure that we don't have too much digestive upsets, otherwise we wouldn't have very many friends. So the next thing, of course, after we drain them and rinse them really well, is I put fresh water inside the pot, and then the last thing I do is I salt the water. Now, I know a lot of people out there have been told not to salt your water. It makes the beans take longer to cook. I have read the science behind both of them, and then I've tried both for myself, and I am in the camp of yes, I salt my beans. I've done both. I was a non-salter for years, and then after hearing the science behind why people do salt their beans, it softens the outer skin of the beans, and it makes it to where the water can penetrate inside the bean so that it actually cooks the inside of the bean faster, rather than just it working its way from the outside in and taking a long time, and then it's still seeming like the beans are al dente after a long time. So yes, I do salt my water, not very heavily though. I would say probably about 1/4 to 1/3 or so of a teaspoon per pound of beans. So here in this one, I have 2 pounds of beans in this fairly large size pot, and I have about 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt. So I have the beans covered in water. All of that has been done. I'm going to go ahead and throw them in my sun oven here, and I'm going to let them cook most of the day. So there they are in the sun oven, and they're pointed directly east because that is how low the sun is in the sky right now. So I almost forgot to take a post of the video, but here they are. They are done. They cooked in the sun oven for quite some time, and now they are all done. And I have a bunch I'm saving back for some meals I'm going to use today and tomorrow and probably the next day. And then a bunch I've put in some containers so that I can put them in the freezer. So yeah, cooked completely off the grid with just the sun oven. Works very well. Okay, so today we are going to make some pasta, and it is super simple to do. So right now I have my pan, I have some water in it. I'm going to get that in the sun oven, I'm going to close it up, and I'm going to actually leave for about an hour. And that's only because that's how long I have to be gone for doing whatever it is I'm doing right now. And so heating the water until it's ready shouldn't take more than 45, but I'm just going to leave it for an hour. It's not going to hurt it. Okay, so now that the water has had a chance to heat up, we're just going to stir in some pasta just like normal. Give it a quick stir before we put the lid back on. Now I'm going to walk away for about 30 minutes. Okay, so let's check on it and see if it's finished. Use my pot holder because it's usually really hot. I like my pasta a little on the soft side anyway. Oh yeah, that's perfect. So there you go. Basically, in a nutshell, when you're cooking pasta, you just leave it for about double the time you would normally cook it for. And yeah, that's how it cooks. Okay, so for this next demonstration, I'm going to make a quinoa salad. It's a nice light and refreshing lunch, or it can make a really good side dish. So the first thing I do is I add 2 cups of water to my roasting pan. If I'm going to make 1 cup of quinoa on the stovetop, I would typically add about 2.5 cups of water. But sticking with the theme of backing off how much water you use because it's in a sun oven, I'm going to use 2 cups of water, and it usually turns out perfect that way. And then I'm going to season that up with a little bit of onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper, just to taste, and then yeah, just get that mixed up and throw that in the sun oven. It usually takes about an hour to an hour and a half to cook, but then after that I need to let it cool for the salad. Okay, so I took this out of the sun oven and let it cool down. You can tell quinoa is cooked when it has the grains have these little white things pop out. I don't know what to call it. These little things pop out of the quinoa. Then you can tell that it's cooked. So anyway, once you cool it down, I'm going to add some tomatoes I just picked out of my garden this morning, a small squeeze of lemon juice, some lettuce, a mixture of parsley. I have here flat leaf and curly leaf, and then an avocado. I have made this several different ways though in the past. I've made a corn and black bean version. Instead of having parsley, because that's more of a summer herb, I've added stuff like cilantro or what's that other thing called? Celery greens, because those start growing really early in the year. So when I make this earlier in spring, maybe that's what I'll use. And so yeah, I just basically use whatever it is we have available, and it usually turns out really well. So this recipe has a lot of wiggle room for you to change however you prefer it to be. There you go, all mixed up. A nice light and healthy salad here for a summer day or any day. And since it kept the heat out of the house, that was very much appreciated since I've been sweating since the moment I woke up this morning. Well guys, do you see this? This is cloud cover. It's even raining a little bit right now. Unfortunately, we need the sun in order to sun oven cook. And so while I wish I had the ability to give you guys some more demonstrations for this video, I had some lined up that I was unable to get completed because off and on for the last 4 or 5 days straight, we have had either overcast weather or even weather like this where it's raining. So I'm sorry, we'll go ahead and do more next week, but I gotta cut this week short. This is the reason why it is good to not have a sun oven as your only and primary cooking source though. So that's important to remember, that in order to use a sun oven you do need the sun, and there isn't always sun, so make sure you have a backup.